Hello everyone. I hope you enjoy listening to the story. I was not allowed on my husband's private jet because I was too low class. So I stayed behind and boarded a different jet that landed before him, carrying evidence that would destroy everything. That sentence still echoes in my head as I stand in the marble driveway of the house I helped build, watching Daniel adjust his cufflinks like I am invisible. His mother stands beside him, her lips curled in that familiar, polished contempt, while a group of investors laugh softly, sipping champagne as if this humiliation is part of the entertainment. "You would embarrass us," she says, not even lowering her voice, and Daniel does not correct her. He just glances at me, eyes cold, distant, like I am a stranger who wandered into the wrong life. I feel my fingers curl slightly, nails pressing into my palm, but I do not react. Not yet. The engine of the private jet hums faintly in the distance, waiting for them. For their version of success, for their carefully curated image. I am not part of that image anymore. At least, that is what they think. Daniel steps closer, lowering his voice just enough to pretend this is private. "This trip is important," he says. "High-level people. You would not fit in. Let that sink in. After everything I have done for him, after every silent sacrifice, I am now something that does not fit." I nod slowly, forcing my expression to stay calm, even as something inside me fractures. "Of course," I reply, my voice steady in a way that surprises even me. But then I notice it. A small detail, almost nothing. The flight manifest sitting loosely in his hand. 2 names highlighted. His and another one. Not a colleague I recognize. Not anyone from the firm. A woman's name. My stomach tightens, not with heartbreak, but with clarity. Red flags do not appear out of nowhere. They build quietly, patiently, until you are forced to see them. The late nights. The locked phone. The sudden obsession with privacy. I should have seen it sooner. But now I do. He walks away without looking back, joining his mother and the others as they head toward the waiting car that will take them to the airstrip. Laughter follows him, light and careless, as if nothing has just shifted. I stand there alone, the silence wrapping around me like a warning. Most people would cry. Most people would beg. I do neither. Instead, I reach into my bag and take out my phone, my hand steady, my mind already moving 3 steps ahead. I dial a number I have not used in years. When the call connects, I do not hesitate. "I need a jet," I say quietly. "And I need it to leave within the hour." Because I am not staying behind. I am just taking a different route. And for the first time, I am not following him. I am hunting the truth he thought he buried, and I can already feel it rising to the surface. Sharp and unforgiving, like something that has been waiting far too long to be seen. The private jet I charter lands just before sunset. The runway glowing gold under a sky that looks too peaceful for what I am about to uncover. I step down slowly, heels clicking against the metal stairs. My reflection briefly flashing in the polished surface of the fuselage. I look composed, calm, untouchable. No one here knows who I am, and that is exactly how I want it. The resort stretches out ahead like a fantasy, glass walls, infinity pools, staff moving with rehearsed precision. This is the world Daniel said I did not belong to. I walk straight into it without hesitation. At the front desk, I give a different name. The receptionist smiles politely, completely unaware that I am here to dismantle a life, not enjoy a vacation. Within minutes, I have a room overlooking the ocean, directly across from the private villas reserved for elite guests. I do not need to ask who is staying there. I already know. I drop my bag, do not even sit down, and head back out, my pulse steady, my mind sharp. Every step feels calculated, like I have crossed a line I can never uncross. But there is no fear left. Only focus. I spot him near the infinity pool. Daniel is laughing. Really laughing. The kind of laugh I have not heard in months. It cuts deeper than any insult. And then I see her. Younger. Effortless. Draped in a silk cover-up that probably costs more than most people make in a month. Her hand rests on his arm like it belongs there. Like I never did. I stop behind a column, just out of sight, my breath slowing instead of speeding up. This is the moment most people would break. I do not. I watch. "You worry too much," she says, her voice light, teasing. "Your wife will never find out." Daniel smirks, shaking his head. She would not even understand what she is looking at. She is convenient. Nothing more. Convenient. The word lands like a blade, but I do not flinch. My hand tightens slightly around my phone as I lift it, angling the camera just enough. I capture everything. The touch. The tone. The truth. This is not suspicion anymore. This is confirmation. Clean. Undeniable. But as I stand there, recording the quiet destruction of my marriage, something unexpected happens. The pain does not grow. It fades, replaced by something colder, something far more dangerous. I follow them at a distance as they move toward one of the private lounges. They do not notice me. Why would they? In their world, I do not exist. Inside, the lighting dims, conversations soften, and money flows through the air like oxygen. I take a seat at the bar, turning slightly, so I can still see them reflected in the mirror behind the bottles. Their voices drop, but not enough. "We finalize everything tomorrow," Daniel says, leaning closer to her. "The investors are ready. Once the transfer clears, it is done." "And the accounts?" she asks. "All offshore. Clean. No one can trace it back." My fingers freeze for half a second, then I press record again. This is no longer just betrayal. This is something else entirely. Something bigger. My mind begins connecting pieces I did not even realize I had. The late-night calls. The documents he refused to share. The sudden interest in international accounts. I always thought he was hiding something. I just did not know it was this. I finish my drink without tasting it and leave before they do, my thoughts already racing ahead. Back in my room, I sit at the desk and open my laptop, the screen lighting up my face in the dim room. I log into a system I have not touched in years, one Daniel never knew existed. Old credentials. Old access. Still valid. Within minutes, I am inside. Files appear. Transactions. Shell companies. Numbers that do not add up unless you know exactly what you are looking for. And I do. Every transfer tells a story. Every hidden account leads somewhere darker. He did not just cheat on me. He used the life we built as a cover for something illegal. I copy everything. Every document. Every record. Every piece of evidence that could tie him to this. My hands move fast, precise, like I have been preparing for this moment without even realizing it. I back up the files twice, encrypt them, send one copy to a secure contact. If anything happens to me, this does not disappear. Neither does he. My phone buzzes suddenly, lighting up beside me. Daniel. I stare at his name for a moment before answering. "Hey," I say, my voice soft, controlled. "Everything okay?" he asks almost casually. "You sounded off earlier." I glance at the screen filled with his secrets. "I am fine," I reply. "Just tired." He exhales, relieved. "Good. I will be back in a few days. We will talk then." "We will," I say quietly. When the call ends, I set the phone down and lean back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. He has no idea. Not about me being here. Not about what I have seen. Not about what I have in my hands right now. He thinks he is ahead. He thinks he is untouchable. He is wrong. I close the laptop slowly, a faint smile forming on my lips, not from happiness but from certainty. I came here looking for the truth about a woman. I found something far more valuable. Something that can destroy him completely. And that is when I realize I am not just going to leave him. I am going to end him. The next morning arrives with a deceptive calm, sunlight spilling across the ocean like nothing in the world is about to collapse. I stand in front of the mirror, adjusting the silk dress I chose carefully, something elegant, something undeniable. Not the version of me they dismissed. Not the woman they thought they could hide. Today I do not blend in. Today I take control. I step out of my room with a steady breath, my phone, my evidence, and a plan that has already locked into place. The investor meeting is scheduled for noon, in the grand conference hall overlooking the water, where million-dollar deals are signed over polished smiles and quiet arrogance. I arrive early. From the outside, the room looks like power. Glass walls, long marble table, screens already glowing with presentations prepared to impress. Inside, staff move quickly, setting up, checking details, making sure everything runs perfectly. I walk past them without hesitation, carrying myself with a confidence that makes people assume I belong. No one stops me. No one questions me. That is the thing about power. If you look like you have it, people step aside. I take a seat at the far end of the room, just outside the main circle, watching as the investors begin to arrive. Expensive suits, controlled expressions, calculated interest. They greet each other like allies, but I can see it clearly now. This is a room full of people waiting to take advantage of the next opportunity. Daniel thinks he is leading them. He has no idea he is about to become the example. My phone rests in my hand as I send one final message. A single line to the contact who now holds everything I uncovered. Timing matters. Precision matters. Be ready. I type, then lock the screen. When Daniel walks in, he does not see me at first. He is too busy performing. His posture shifts instantly, shoulders back, voice confident, smile polished. The woman from the pool walks in beside him, dressed like she already belongs to his future. She takes a seat close to him, not hiding anything now. Why would they? In their minds, they already won. I watch him greet the investors, shaking hands, making promises, building the illusion that he is in control of everything in this room. I should feel anger. I should feel something raw and overwhelming. Instead, I feel calm, cold, focused. The presentation begins. Charts appear on the screen. Growth projections, expansion plans, numbers that look clean on the surface but now feel hollow to me. I know what is behind them. I know where the money really goes. Daniel speaks with authority, his voice steady, explaining how this deal will change everything, how it will elevate everyone involved. The investors nod, some leaning forward, already calculating profit. And that is when I stand up. The sound of my chair sliding back cuts through the room, sharp and unexpected. Heads turn. Conversations pause. Daniel's voice falters for just a second before he looks in my direction, confusion flashing across his face. For a brief moment, he does not recognize me. And then he does. "What are you doing here?" he asks, the confidence in his voice cracking just slightly. I do not answer immediately. I walk forward instead, each step deliberate, measured, until I am standing at the center of the room, where he thought he owned the space. The woman beside him stiffens, her eyes narrowing, trying to place me, trying to understand why I am not backing down. "You said I did not belong here," I say calmly, my voice carrying through the silence. "I just wanted to see what this level looks like." A few of the investors exchange glances, sensing something is off. Daniel forces a tight smile. "This is not the time," he says under his breath. "We will talk later." "No," I reply just as quietly. "We will not." I reach into my bag and pull out a small device, connecting it to the main screen before anyone can stop me. For a split second, nothing happens. Then the presentation disappears. The first image appears. It is him, by the pool, laughing, her hand on his arm. The room goes still. Someone shifts in their seat. Another investor leans forward, eyes narrowing. Daniel steps toward the screen, his face draining of color. "Turn that off," he says, his voice low, controlled, but there is panic underneath it now. I do not move. The video continues. His voice fills the room. Clear. Undeniable. My wife is convenient. Nothing more. A murmur spreads across the table. The woman beside him pulls her hand away, like she has been burned. Daniel turns toward me, anger rising, but it is too late. I tap my phone again. The next set of files appears. Transactions. Offshore accounts. Shell companies. Numbers that do not lie. The room shifts completely. This is no longer gossip. This is risk. Real risk. One of the investors stands abruptly. "What is this?" he demands. Daniel shakes his head quickly. "This is taken out of context," he says, his voice louder now, desperate to regain control. "You do not understand the structure." "I understand it perfectly." I cut in, my tone steady, almost calm. "You moved funds through unregistered accounts. You hid them offshore. You plan to finalize the transfer today." Silence. Heavy. Crushing. And then the doors open. Two officials step inside, followed by security. The shift is immediate. Final. Daniel freezes, his entire body going rigid as reality catches up with him. The investors pull back, distancing themselves instinctively, like he is something toxic. "You need to come with us," one of the officials says. Daniel turns to me, his eyes wide now, no arrogance left, no control, just shock. "What did you do?" he asks, his voice breaking. I meet his gaze without hesitation. "You said I was not your level," I tell him quietly. "You were right." I step back as they move toward him, as everything he built begins to unravel in real time. In front of the only audience that ever mattered to him. And that is the moment he realizes he has just lost everything. The silence that follows is not immediate chaos. It is slower than that, heavier, like the air itself thickens as reality settles into the room. I do not move. I do not need to. The damage is already done. Daniel stands there, frozen between denial and collapse. His eyes darting from the officials to the investors, searching for someone to anchor himself to, someone to believe him. No one does. The same people who were nodding at his projections minutes ago now lean back in their chairs. Distancing themselves, their expressions tightening into something cold and calculating. They are not shocked because of betrayal. They are shocked because they almost invested in a liability. One of the investors clears his throat, adjusting his jacket, as if trying to physically separate himself from what just happened. "We are suspending all discussions effective immediately," he says, his tone flat, professional, already rewriting the narrative in his head. Another stands up without a word, gathering his documents, avoiding eye contact with Daniel entirely. The room begins to empty in slow, deliberate movements, not rushed, not chaotic, but final. That is what power looks like when it withdraws. It does not scream. It simply disappears. Daniel finally turns back to me, his face pale, his composure shattered in a way I have never seen before. "You think this is over?" he asks, his voice uneven, trying to pull something from whatever pride he has left. "You think you win like this?" There is anger there, but it is hollow now, stripped of the confidence that used to carry it. I tilt my head slightly, studying him as if I am seeing him for the first time, because in a way, I am. The man I thought I knew never really existed. What stands in front of me now is the truth, exposed, smaller than I ever imagined. "I am not trying to win," I reply quietly. "I am correcting a mistake." The officials step closer, one of them gently but firmly placing a hand on his arm. Daniel resists for half a second, instinctively, then stops. As if even he understands that there is no fight left worth having. The woman who stood beside him earlier is gone. She slipped out somewhere between the second video and the first document, disappearing as soon as the illusion cracked. That tells me everything I need to know. Loyalty built on convenience never survives exposure. As they escort him toward the door, he looks back one last time, his eyes searching mine for something. Regret. Mercy. Recognition. I give him none of it. Not because I feel nothing, but because I finally understand what he never did. Closure does not come from his apology. It comes from my decision to stop needing it. When the door closes behind him, the room feels larger. Quieter. Cleaner. I walk slowly to the table, gathering the few documents left behind, not because I need them, but because it feels right to close the scene myself. My reflection stares back at me from the darkened screen, composed, controlled. Someone I barely recognize but somehow trust more than I ever trusted the version of me that stood in that driveway days ago. The rest happens quickly after that. Legal teams step in. Accounts are flagged. Transfers are frozen before they can be completed. By the time the sun sets, Daniel's name is no longer associated with opportunity. It is associated with risk, investigation, collapse. The same system he tried to manipulate now turns against him with ruthless efficiency. There is no dramatic explosion, just a systematic dismantling of everything he built on lies. I leave the resort the next morning without saying goodbye to anyone. There is nothing left to say. The staff nod politely as I pass, unaware that anything unusual has happened. To them, I am just another guest checking out. That is the beauty of it. The world does not stop for personal endings. It keeps moving, indifferent, steady, forcing you to decide whether you will move with it or stay trapped in what no longer exists. On the flight back, I sit by the window, watching the clouds stretch endlessly beneath me. This time, I am not chasing anything. I am not following anyone. For the first time in a long time, I am simply moving forward. My phone buzzes once, a message from my lawyer confirming what I already expected. Asset reviews have begun. My position is secure. The life I helped build was never truly his to take. When I land, the city feels different. Not because it changed, but because I did. I walk into the apartment that once felt like a shared space, and now feels like mine alone. The silence is not empty. It is peaceful. I set my bag down, take a slow breath, and let it out without tension for the first time in days. I think about everything that led here. The trust, the doubts, the moment in the driveway when I almost accepted being left behind. If I had stayed there, if I had believed what they said about me, none of this would have happened. That is the real difference. Not the jet, not the evidence, the decision. I move to the window, looking out over the city lights as they begin to flicker on one by one. Somewhere out there, Daniel is trying to hold on to whatever is left, trying to make sense of how everything slipped through his fingers. I wonder if he remembers the exact moment he decided I was not enough. I wonder if he understands now that it was never about class or status or image. It was about underestimating the one person who knew him best. I close my eyes for a moment, then open them, steady, grounded, certain. He took a private jet to escape me. I took one to end him. The aftermath does not come with noise or chaos. It settles quietly, like dust after something heavy has collapsed. Within days, Daniel's name begins to circulate for all the wrong reasons. Not in headlines at first, but in conversations behind closed doors, in emails marked urgent, in calls that suddenly go unanswered. Deals disappear. Accounts are locked. People who once chased him now avoid even saying his name. That is how a reputation dies. Not with a bang, but with absence. The woman who stood beside him at the resort is nowhere to be found. She vanishes as if she never existed, taking her carefully curated charm with her, leaving nothing behind but proof that she was never loyal to begin with. I hear updates through my lawyer, never directly. I do not need to see him to understand what is happening. Investigations move forward. Financial records are examined line by line. Every hidden transaction becomes another weight pulling him down. He tries to respond at first, to defend himself, to explain. But explanations mean nothing when the evidence is clean, precise, unforgiving. The same precision he once used to hide everything now exposes him completely. There is a certain symmetry in that, a quiet kind of justice that does not need to announce itself. Back in the city, my life begins to reorganize itself in ways I did not expect. Spaces that once felt shared now feel defined, controlled. Mine. I move through my days with a clarity that surprises me, handling legal matters, restructuring accounts, making decisions I used to hesitate over. There is no hesitation now, no second guessing. The uncertainty that once followed me has been replaced by something steadier. Something grounded in the simple fact that I finally see things as they are. One evening, I receive a message from an unknown number. I do not need to open it to know who it is. I stare at the screen for a moment, then delete it without reading. Closure is not something he gets to give me. It is something I already took for myself the moment I stepped into that room and chose not to look away. That is the difference between who I was and who I am now. I do not wait for permission to move on. Sometimes I think back to that moment in the driveway, the way they looked at me, the way they decided what I was worth based on their version of the world. It almost feels distant now, like something that happened to someone else. But I remember one thing clearly. The choice. The second where I could have stayed exactly where they placed me, accepted their judgment, believed their version of me. Instead, I stepped forward. That single decision changed everything that came after. I stand by the window again, looking out over the city as the lights stretch endlessly into the distance. The world has not changed. People still measure worth in the same shallow ways. Power still hides behind appearances. But I am no longer part of that illusion. I see it clearly now. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. So let me ask you something. If someone looked at you and decided you were not enough, not good enough to stand beside them, not worthy of the life you helped build, would you walk away quietly? Or would you make sure they never forgot exactly who they underestimated? In the end, I learned something most people only realize too late. Betrayal rarely starts big. It begins with small lies, quiet disrespect, and moments we choose to ignore because we trust the wrong person. Integrity is not about what people say in public. It is about what they do when they think no one is watching. And if someone can lie easily, they can destroy everything just as easily. The real lesson is simple. Never ignore red flags, and never let anyone define your worth. If this story made you feel something, stay with me. Subscribe so you do not miss the next story. Like this video if you believe karma always finds its way back. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done in my place?